Are you looking for a new cinematic universe to follow now that the MCU has been put on hold? Are the DCEU movies just not doing it for you anymore? Did you know there's another place to follow your favorite DC characters? This is the DCAMU, DC Animated Movie Universe. There are 14, yes, you heard me right, 14 unique movies that have an array of DC characters spread throughout them that continue one narrative which will culminate in the upcoming Justice League Dark Apokolips War. Now that you know what to do, don't waste any time. Go on those interwebs and start streaming. Sponsored by Local Touch Online, a free online magazine that has an exclusive article by Pop Culture Geekery every month. Also sponsored by Game House in New Braunfels. They offer plenty of gaming space for tabletop products, minis custom painted, video games, custom 3D printing, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, and D&D, of which they are currently offering online sessions during the social distancing times. Contact them on Facebook to reserve your session today. Hello and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Geekery. I'm Joe Solis, and tonight we're going to be doing something a little bit different because of everything that's going on in the world. Me and one of my co-hosts, Roy, still wanted to do some reviews together. So we're going to do a review using one of the recording apps online. So I apologize ahead of time for the quality because we have to rely on our phones and webcams. So when we come up on that video here in a second, I just wanted to let you know why the change in format. But before that, I did want to do a special shout out. So here in our neighborhood, we found that there is a young man named Will who has been diagnosed with cancer. And some of our alumni from Pop Culture Geekery went out today and for his birthday, which unfortunately was canceled because of all the virus concerns, they dressed up as superheroes and they waited for him on their street, and so that way his parents could drive by and see the superheroes out on the lawn. So thank you so much to our pop culture alumni, Cameron, Cheyenne, and Kayla, for doing that. You guys are amazing. And I'm sure that that was really special for Will. And so for those of you who are in a position to help, I actually am going to put the link to his GoFundMe down below. That way, if you have something to give, I'm sure anything would help their family. For those of you who believe in prayer, definitely send them prayers. If you don't, send them good vibes, or in the comments below, send them some encouraging words. But anyway, just something that came up today that we wanted to, to help out with. So anyway, so for those of you who are ready for the video, here it is. All right, so through the power and magic of technology, I have one of my guest hosts back on here, Roy from Roy's Toy Box. Welcome back, Roy.
Hey guys, hey, how's it going?
So we are going to give this a shot to see if we can record an episode like this. So as you saw in the intro, we're going to be talking about two of the movies that are going to be leading up to Apokolips War, which is releasing in May. So we're going to be doing a countdown, rewatching or watching some of these movies. I know I missed a lot of them. So we're going to start off with Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. And yeah, as you can see, well, actually, the toys you have, some of them are from the next one we're going to do, War. But anyway, so Flashpoint Paradox came out in 2014.
Yes.
And it was actually only 3 years after DC launched their New 52 continuity, which was supposed to be the first hard reboot in history. And so I remember that was pretty controversial when it came out, but I followed it starting from the miniseries of the same name, which was Flashpoint. Did you ever get to read that one?
I want to say I did. I know that it was written by Jeff Johns, if I'm saying that right, and actually the artist was Kubert, Adam or Andy. I can't remember which one, but you can definitely see the style in the artwork through that, the art design on that one.
Yeah. Oh, I always remember liking both of those brothers' art. So
Yeah.
I actually just found my issues the other day when I was cleaning out stuff, as I'm sure you have. We've been cleaning out a lot of stuff too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But so they and I didn't even realize this, when they first started this. I didn't know it was supposed to be kind of its own movie continuity because they have released other DC movies in between the ones that are part of this continuity, which we reviewed one of them, which was Red Sun a few weeks ago. Um, but so this one, I think we were talking a little bit about it before we started recording. It's meant to kick off this new universe. And so I assume, and you tell me what you gathered, is that this universe that it starts off in, where everybody knows everybody, the Flash exists, Justice League exists the way we know it, that I guess it continues on from roughly from the continuity of the movies before, or heck, even I guess Justice League Unlimited. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I suspect. But I like we kind of talked about before this. It's a little out of place. It's Flashpoint seems like they kind of jumped ahead on the story. I thought it was a great way to start it. I guess get people interested in it.
Well, because as far as the purpose of the comic, it took place in DC continuity at the time,
Hmm.
and it basically introduced the Flashpoint universe, which has actually been brought up in other animated products, which I think was one of the was it Unlimited? I thought I saw when I was searching stuff. I thought I saw a Unlimited cartoon that was labeled Flashpoint.
Yeah, yeah, you're correct.
And then I also know in the current Flash TV series, they also did their own take on Flashpoint as well, which gave them one of their crossovers. So it's a pretty popular idea, and it's a really cool idea. So it starts off pretty. Oh, by the way, there's going to be spoilers, but these movies are already 6 years old, so hopefully, if you haven't seen them already, the whole point of this countdown is to give you guys some good stuff to stream while we're all stuck at home. Um, but it just starts off with a heist, and you basically have all the Flash's rogues, and you have the Reverse Flash, leading the heist. And at first, it just seems like another attack on the Flash, but as you find out later, I guess Reverse Flash kind of planned this because
Yeah,
at the it was pretty interesting because they kind of go through everybody. You get to see the Justice League as they are now, so that way or I guess remember where they're at before things get messed up later in the show.
right, right. And this is like led by the all-star cast that I think a lot of people or fans have come to love. Everyone from Tim Daly as Superman, Conroy as Batman. I think is I'm trying to remember if Nathan Fillion did Green Lantern. I think he did in this one. It's iconic. So great voice casting for this one, and even like the Rose Gallery were. I'm not as familiar with the cast on that, but all did a great job seeing like the top. I mean, characters you didn't really see as much, minus Captain Boomerang and Captain Cold, but like seeing Mirror Master, the top, and one other one I'm trying to remember. Oh, Heatwave, I think, who we really see more in the live action series on Legends. Um, but it was kind of cool to see them all together, and again, great voice casting for the original core Justice League was really really well done on this one.
And I think that was part of it too. It's supposed to be, I guess, kind of symbolic that all
Mm.
the actors that we grew up with, a lot of these voices were this was their last project. Even though I think didn't Kevin Conroy still do a couple more times after this, or
Yeah,
was this
he's done a
truly his last
couple.
one?
No, he's done a couple others here and there. Although there's that new guy, and I'm not remembering his name right now, but he does a really good Kevin Conroy as Batman. So that's kind of a nice homage there. But yeah, I believe this was probably one of the last ones together.
Yeah. So after they thwart Reverse Flash, it kind of threw me off because Barry like literally just does he like go to sleep or something, and he just wakes up and he's in the Flashpoint universe or something like
Yeah,
that.
after they disarm all the bombs and everything, Reverse Flash mentions something about not being able to save the ones you love, the ones you truly care about, and you can kind of see him thinking as he runs off, and he just basically runs into the Speed Force, and then he wakes up. So you can see it's weighing heavily on his mind as he runs away. So, but they never actually show anything at that point.
So he basically wakes up in an alternate reality where it takes him a while to realize what happened. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because we forgot to mention one of the main. Well, if you know the Flash's origin, you know that his mom, gets killed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and of course that's repeated here just so we remember, kind of like how you have to have Batman's parents killed over and over so we can remember.
Right. Right.
Um, so they cleverly, as soon as he gets into the new world, he's still at the police station, still some of the same familiar faces he knows, but the first face he walks out into the street and sees is his mom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously supposed to let him and us know that something's up. And so yeah, so then it becomes a mystery to, he's trying to figure out what happened, and he realizes real quick through news broadcasts and other characters letting him know that I guess in this world, first off, there is no Superman in this world, or at least not yet. um, the Batman of this world is one of my favorite characters. That's
Yeah.
actually what this shirt is from.
Yeah.
It's the Thomas Wayne Batman, and I remember him in the comics. He was just so cool. He's just so angry.
Yeah.
he's like,
If
he's
you can
like,
imagine Batman being more angry and grumpy.
yeah. Well, they pulled it off. That was the thing with him. I just, I just really loved it, and it's so funny because it leads to some great stories with him because he pretty much doesn't care. He's
Yeah.
I guess what he was still obviously defending Gotham, but he already felt the impending doom, I guess, of the end of the world because in this world, which they show later through a clever flashback, the kingdoms of Atlantis and Themyscira actually come together. But as
Yeah.
feelings always get in the way, feelings cause so many problems in this world, in worlds in
It's so
general.
dark.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, so you have Aquaman meet Wonder Woman, and it's all through a no voiceover flashback, so it's all
Right.
visual storytelling, which I thought was really cool. And you see him and Wonder Woman, fall in love, and of course Mara still exists in this world, so she gets to see Aquaman cheat on her, and then so she confronts Wonder Woman about it, and they get into a fight, and she and Mara gets beheaded. I saw you
Yeah.
post that picture on
Yeah.
Facebook.
That was one of the more jarring images, and this one has a lot. This was definitely not for kids, so this is definitely aimed more towards the I think adult fans. Um, yeah, even my mom commented. She's like, "Oh my God, that's really dark for a cartoon." So that was kind of funny to get her reaction to that. But um, yeah, I mean it's done really well. The visuals done really well. It's shocking, and it really gets you into the story. So great job there, storytelling that and kind of um, just fast forwarding us through what's happening or what's going on.
Well, the funny thing is, almost all of these are rated PG-13. There are actually a couple of R-rated ones that come later, including Apokolips War. Apparently, is going to be rated R. So it's going to be interesting because as the two that we're going to review today, especially Justice League War, gets pretty violent later too, towards the end of the last fight. But anyway, so with those two kingdoms at war in this world. Um, Everybody's anticipating, impending Armageddon, basically. And so in this world, Cyborg kind of fills the role of Superman. Here, I'll let you talk about that for a little bit. I feel like I'm taking all the conversation.
Oh no, no. Yeah, I mean, let me see if I can remember all this, but basically, yeah, Cyborg is basically in charge. He even tries to convince the military to kind of let him put together a team, but they pretty much end up grounding him right near the beginning. And yeah, and in this world there is no Superman, but the Flash does get a flashback in his memories and kind of sees what happens in this alternate, I guess, in this Flashpoint universe, where Superman's ship actually bypasses Kansas and actually lands in Metropolis, creating this massive crater in the Earth. And they never learn about him. He's not. Matter of fact, the Batman of this world says there's no metahuman that matches the description that Flash tells him later in the film. But yeah, it's a completely different world, and it kind of puts Cyborg in the forefront. So that was an interesting dynamic, and I really like his design as well. I'm trying to remember who voiced his character. I want to say who did a great job in this one as well. Good casting again on that.
Well, I think at one point he even goes as far to call Cyborg, Big Boy Scout, which I thought was a nice little callback to Superman, and the fact that Cyborg kind of fill in that spot.
Yeah.
So let's see. The thing that I think is really good about this movie is it fills a lot of stuff, because you got to understand, like when Flashpoint was happening, there was a lot of little miniseries that were around it, because I think Flashpoint itself was either 5 or 6 issues long, but there was little like 3-issue miniseries around it, and each of them are represented here. Because like we see that Deathstroke is a pirate on a ship that's named the Ravager, and he actually has Lex Luthor working with him.
Yeah, and it was really neat. Again, sorry to butt in real quick here. What's his Deathstroke is actually voiced by Ron Perlman. I was really surprised. I didn't know that. I actually looked that up. I'm horrible at getting voices, but that was a nice little surprise. And I think even Luthor had a pretty big name. I forget his name, Bill something, who has got a huge list as far as voiceovers. So there was a lot of stuff to appreciate about this, and like I realized it's probably one of my top 5. But the voice casting on this was outstanding.
Yeah, so like I said, that was definitely a miniseries that was represented. Wonder Woman had her own as well. I'm pretty sure Aquaman did. I can't remember. I have to look them all up. But one that was really amazing that was in the miniseries, and they stuffed it in here too. It was in that flashback. Was the Thomas Wayne origin, because we already knew by his conversation that night Bruce was the one who was killed. But he doesn't really mention Martha too much. But you see that it actually drives Martha insane, and she becomes the Joker of this world, which was
really good.
Yeah, I still remember that. I think they actually matched the image in the movie pretty well to the book.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. They also squeeze in the book that was called Lois Lane, the Resistance. And a lot of the same characters in there, including my personal favorite, apart from Batman, which is good old Grifter of the Wildcats.
I mean, it wasn't that cricket guy. What's his name? Canterbury Cricket or something.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what his name was. Yeah. He was also in the miniseries, I remember. But of course, for those of y'all who don't know, Grifter is from, the old Image Comics book Wildcats, which later it was just part of the Wildstorm universe, and then was eventually sold to DC. And their creator Jim Lee is now the head of DC, from what I understand. And I remember hearing the director say that he was the one that pushed for Grifter in here, because he was because otherwise he probably would have not gotten in here at all. So I always appreciated that. So at this point, something happened with my video feed, so I was blurry the rest of the time, but you can still hear my audio. So for the rest of the video, you get to see this nice little still shot of me, so we can continue from here. And then we do get Superman, like you said. He is in this world, but he's been locked away by the government his whole life, basically 30 years, I think they said. Yeah. And so I guess they figured out that the sun powers them, because they have him in a room that's filled with red sunlight. So he's all emaciated and anorexic and sickly looking.
Yeah, and as they walk in, it looks like, well, first of all, they didn't even know, Cyborg didn't even know it was above his security level. And when he does find out where he's located, as they walk into the room, which I thought was really interesting, is you see they've been doing some kind of genetic testing. It looks like they've been trying to clone Superman, and I think there's even, which is really kind of sad. I don't know if this was supposed to be crypto, but there are two dog-like skeletons in these big, vats, these tanks or whatever. And then as you follow it, you see they become more humanoid. So I wasn't sure what that was or covered it in the comics better, but I was just like, oh my god, I think that's crypto. But the others, you just kind of see it looks like they're trying to develop a Superman of some kind to control.
Yeah, or maybe even clone an army. But if I remember right, yeah, that definitely was crypto. I think that was even in the comics.
Okay.
But they free Superman, and as soon as they get him into the sun, he's able to use his powers. But I guess his powers freak him out because he ends up killing some people.
Oh yeah, straight up murders the army. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and then he just flies away. So,
well, there goes our big gun.
Yeah. Now, the one character in here who I think it even happened in the original story too, that I feel he got a little bit gypped, was Green Lantern, because like you said, yeah, he's voiced by Nathan Fillion, so he's got some great lines and some great dialogue, but his whole purpose it has nothing to do with the ring. It's actually Abin Sur's ship, the one that crashed, and that in our reality he got the ring, but they just make a throwaway line that the ring flew away.
Yeah.
And I was like, all righty then. Yeah. So he basically all he gets to do as things escalate, the Amazons and the Atlanteans are about to go to full-on war, is he pulls a Randy Quaid from Independence Day. He just flies straight into them with a nuke.
His line. Yeah, beware my power. But going back to when they show him another cool casting, a voice casting, if you will, is and I'm forgetting the name, but again, it's the guy that played the villain in Wonder Woman, not Ares, but the I don't know, the Nazi guy, whatever his name was. But that he's got a very definitive voice, and he actually plays General Lane in this movie, versus I think the General of the Air Force, who I think is actually the other Lantern's dad. I forget his name now too. Anyways, great voice casting for him, and it was a very sad story for Hal, but at least they showed him when he was looking at a reflection at Abin Sur, where he looks like he's wearing the uniform, kind of like they did with Captain America in the movie.
Yeah. So one thing I guess we forgot to mention is that Flash apparently has lost his powers, making the crossover into this world. So him and Batman do this crazy experiment twice where they try to get lightning to hit him and mix the chemicals at the same time. And, I did appreciate that they tried it twice. It would have been way too convenient, if they just happened on the first time. But yeah, I just kind of want to see if we can wrap this one up so we can get to the next one. But yeah, so basically just get into an all-out war there at the end, and it's brutal. I mean,
everybody dies. I mean, everybody dies. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, because one of the players that comes out is Captain Atom, which he doesn't get too much screen time, but basically in this world he's been captured and turned into a nuke by the Atlanteans, basically. And so he's the linchpin there at the end. Oh, I forgot to mention that in this world, Shazam is actually the group of kids come together and form Shazam. Oh yeah, then they face Wonder Woman.
That was just brutal, man. I mean, I could have done without the audio of that part, but just the suggestion of showing him on the floor afterwards. Basically, so it's the Shazam kids in this one. It's not just Billy Batson. It's actually all the foster children together form Shazam and takes on Wonder Woman. It's a great little battle, and we kind of think Shazam has the upper hand. She basically outmaneuvers him and forces him, using the lasso of truth, to reveal how he takes this form. And once she does that, he becomes the foster kids again, and immediately, being the strategist that she is, she kills Billy Batson. I mean, like, then off screen you hear it, and it's gruesome, but for moments of this entire film.
Yeah, I bet you they were pushing the R rating with this one,
I'm
but they
surprised
stayed
it wasn't.
PG-13.
Yeah, I guess they just have to show it to make it.
But yeah, so towards the end, Reverse Flash shows up, and of course, shows his hand that he's in. Well, it's kind of an interesting twist because he tells Barry it's actually not him who did this; it's Barry. So,
Right.
because Barry did go back in time and stop his mom from dying, but it's like the butterfly effect. It caused all this chaos. And so Reverse Flash just was like reveling in the fact that Barry did this and he had nothing to do with it. So,
right.
But of course he was encouraging
really it. Yeah, that battle was pretty awesome too. Seeing the two speedsters fight and how they are able to go, they basically leap into the air, are punching each other at super speed, kicking each other, and then go right back into running and then continue their fight, which was a really actually pretty good finale, if you will, for them. Probably one of their better battles I've seen.
So it ends with Flash basically deciding to go back and undo what he did. He actually catches up with his other self, which I always thought that was such a weird idea. It's like he's like, Flash, stop! Like, who? What? It's like, how many times could he do that? So, but he undoes it, but they don't really emphasize this too much in the movie as they did in the comic. But when they come back to the real world, he goes straight to Batman because he actually has a letter from Batman's dad from that other world. And oh man, I wish I remember. I can't remember. I think they don't show it in the movie, but I think in the comics, I think his dad pleads with him to stop being Batman. Yeah, which would have been interesting if they had gone with that, because the letter plays a bigger part in the comics. Here it's just like a nice little thing. They just scroll to the bottom and they show it says, love Thomas, or love your dad, or whatever, signed Thomas Wayne, and Batman cries, which is something we don't see a lot. And Barry is wearing a new suit. Yeah, Barry is wearing a new suit, which is supposed to denote that something's different, but they, like I said, they don't really play on that. So
that's because the suit, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what the thing is that like it's one of those, because I was even trying to read up. It's kind of confusing as to where that moment where he goes back and shows that to Batman, like how that all plays, because the whole, from what I understand, and it's even in the comics, if they explained it later, I don't know. I'm just going based on when I was following, because I actually was reading all the New 52 titles at the time. When we go into the next one, which I guess we can start rolling into Justice League War, or do we want to do ratings for this first?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, assuming we still go by the 1 through 10, man, like I said, this one is top 10, top 5. Man, the artwork, the voice casting, the story, even though they did change some stuff, obviously they do from the books and stuff. And I've always rated high, so like with this one, and especially with War coming up, I'm gonna give this one like a very strong 8.5 to 9. If I had to settle on something, I'd say a 9, because this is probably one of my favorites. I mean, it's just something that they've evolved to where even us as adults can really sink our teeth into it and just be like, wow, this is good. This is really good. And they don't hold back. They don't pull punches, as much as they could have. So yeah, I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, that's what I was going to settle on to, a 9 out of 10. Just because, honestly, if you wanted to nitpick anything, it's just the fact that there's so many characters that, if you hadn't seen DC in general and anything, and you could go back to the previous movies, you'd go back to DC, Justice League Unlimited and all that, then you'd have a working knowledge of these characters. But there's just so many that maybe you especially if you were like a first-time viewer, you may not get all of them or understand all of them. I mean, you may get the gist by the end, but you probably wouldn't appreciate them as much, especially Canterbury Cricket. But
I was going to say, who doesn't want to learn more about Canterbury Cricket? I am definitely invested in that character now.
Where's his spin-off movie? So then let's move on to Justice League War, which let's see, I believe that one came out. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. Flashpoint Paradox actually came out in 2013, and War is the one that came out in 2014.
Oh, really?
And which is pretty fast because
I was about to say,
the new 52 came out in 2011. So,
yeah.
well, it's definitely different animation studios. I don't know if you noticed the difference, but in the animation style in Flashpoint, like they kind of have what I call the power of the force look. They're all very broad-shouldered and very bulky
Well, I mean, it's based
looking.
off of, they go with the artist rendering, the original artwork. So Kubert's style was definitely, you could definitely see it in the jaw lines and definitely the bulk of the characters. But yeah, definitely power of the force. Yeah.
So Justice League War is supposed to be the new continuity. Like, it's the way I understand it is that Flashpoint is supposed to have caused this reboot in the timeline, to where instead of years of comic history, to where they tried to explain it away in other past crossovers and stuff. But here they were trying this really weird thing, and I'm glad it didn't stick, to where the superheroes in this world have only existed for about 5 years. Well, in the public eye, because you still start with Superman, and then you kind of move forward, and then Batman, shows up, and he's just a legend. That's why in this one, so this one's all about the Justice League of the new reality meeting each other. And that's why a line that's taken straight from the comics, because I was there on opening night when Justice League #1 came out. So I followed that one for a while, because Jim Lee, he drew those issues. He drew the first 12 issues of that one.
They're amazing as always.
Yeah, very pretty to look at. But yeah, there's a line in there where like they're basically, it opens up with they're chasing a parademon, and Batman and Green Lantern ended up meeting, and Green Lantern's like, "Batman, you're real?"
Yeah. And I have to say, this one, a lot of really humor in this one. I thought that they did something extra, I think, from the book, which really made it, I think, more enjoyable, because I know we said it's pretty to look at, but I don't know if the story was probably as sharpened as the art. But I mean, I still enjoyed it, but I like that aspect in the movie, and it carries through the whole thing. I didn't really get that in the book as much.
Yeah, this one is more of what I'd call a fighty fight movie. Like, there's so much action. It's like Michael Bay directed this one almost. Because they're just fighting. Everybody's fighting nonstop, and the parademons in this world are so much more, I guess, threatening, because it seems like it takes longer to take them out. So they basically just go. Oh, they actually replace Aquaman with Shazam, which I thought was an interesting choice. And I guess,
like that,
well, I mean, it's funny because I know Jeff Johns, I don't know how much he had a hand in this. I know he loved Shazam, because when those Justice League issues were coming out, Shazam had a backup story, which is actually the inspiration for the Shazam movie that we just got. What was that, last year?
Yeah.
And that's actually pretty good art. It's Gary Frank. It's very realistic art. I'll post some of it here. But I think as far as the movies, I think they did it on purpose, because I've seen the list that we're going to go over. There's that one called Justice League Throne of Atlantis, which is a storyline from the comics. It's actually the name of one of the graphic novels. So I assume that they saved him just for that. And that's why they took Shazam and threw him in here. I mean, what did you think of them doing that?
Personally, I liked it. I'm not the biggest Aquaman fan, even with the movie, and I know they always try to make him cool. And I know there are a lot of fans. I'm not knocking him. But
way to go, Roy! Now we're going to get a lot of hate mail.
I know, but I do have my Aquaman here, so love for Aquaman. I mean, whatever. And I don't have
He's riding a little horsey.
But no, I actually did enjoy it. It lent a lot to the development of Cyborg's character. He was fun. He was also kind of the plucky sidekick kind of, even though he was, probably one of the more powerful characters in this. I actually did enjoy him in this. Again, they did something different from the book that I think that if I'm rating it, it bumped it up a little bit because of the humor in this. So yes, there's a lot of fighting, but they did alleviate it with some of the jokes on the side, and they were fun. Some were, cringeworthy, but it was funny. I laughed, and I still laughed after watching it. All these years later, it seems like I forget how old that is now, even though it's not that old. But no, I liked it. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, because they actually they're pretty faithful to that opening story. Like they show Cyborg when he's still a high school kid. Apparently he's really good at football, and so, but of course his dad, is all about science and doesn't want to come to his games. And they actually have him meet Billy Batson at the game, so that was added in there. And it was a nice little link because they play on that later, the fact that he knows who he is. And so I think they did a good job of tying that in. Then we get, speaking of fighty fight, we get Green Lantern and Batman versus Superman. Yeah, it's funny because I remember when this came out, and even in his own comic of the relaunch, people were talking about how Superman seemed more of a jerk in this continuity.
He's confident, definitely confident.
He's been watching the Neverending Story. Be confident, Superman.
He's passionate. He's very passionate. No, but he is confident, definitely. But I will have to say this too, and I don't know. Apparently, Batman is faster than a speeding bullet. Matter of fact, he's faster than a speeding laser, as we'll see later in the film. But I thought he was a little bit. Man, they amped up his everything on him. I think for a guy with no superpowers, he was amped up quite a bit actually for this one.
I'm sure there's going to be people who say that Superman was never intending to kill him. He was just purposely missing him and scaring him, and so. But so let's see here. So yeah, the whole point is that the parademons are running around the city and putting the what we later know as the boom tubes, which are like the portals that are supposed to have the parademons invade the Earth. I also noticed that like when I forgot to talk about Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman is just barely being introduced, I guess, to the world, and it's interesting because people don't like her. They don't like that she's all about being a warrior and stuff like that. And so it's funny because it's similar to the live action movie we got. I just feel like this Wonder Woman is maybe a little bit more exaggerated in that aspect, where Gal Gadot was more understated. She still loves ice cream, though.
That seems to be a continuing theme. I'm not sure where that comes from, but sure, it is really good.
Come on, Bluebell. There's your chance for a crowd. Where's our Wonder Woman flavor? And then, so, when things start to escalate and the parademons start attacking and the boom tubes start activating, that's when Cyborg's in his dad's lab and he grabs the boom tube out of anger, and that's when it activates and actually grafts itself to him. Did you notice that his dad's assistant is Dr. T.O. Morrow? Did you catch that?
I was curious. The guy that looks like Tony Stark a little bit, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they ever said his full name, but he did call him Dr. Morrow.
Yeah.
So there was some nice little nods in there like that. So of course Wonder Woman gets in on the act by fighting the parademons that attack the White House, which is where she was when this started. Let's see. So the Flash is the one who comes and saves Cyborg. The Cyborg in this one is interesting, I guess, because it's not like his his cybernetics. They're more organic. I guess that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
So. And I guess the more he got beat up, the more they chiseled it into his traditional form, I guess.
Yeah,
Did you notice that?
They basically forged him. Like, he was forged in a battle literally by the parademons. They beat him until where it formed around him, and basically everything became a defensive measure for him. I have to say, this is probably one of my more favorite Cyborg designs, but not probably one of my favorite Cyborg interpretations. Really whiny in this one. I get he's a teenager, but it was like wah 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 the whole way through, almost until the very end. But he was voiced really well by Shamar Moore, For any fans of him, he's from like Criminal Minds and now SWAT. Really great actor, and I love his interpretation of Cyborg. Although I wish he was a little stronger developed. But this is an origin story. You know, he's learning the ropes. But man, was it whiny.
So kind of what we were talking about earlier about not knowing some of these characters beforehand. You know, because even at the beginning when Billy was meeting him, I still was questioning myself. I'm like, is that Billy? You know, and then he just runs under the backyard and he's already Shazam. I was like, oh, okay, he's already Shazam. So that's kind of what I was talking about. That's one of those that you're just gonna have to be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna accept that. And hopefully, if you saw Flashpoint, you'll at least know who Shazam is.
Right.
So the dark side of this reality is interesting. He doesn't seem, at least not in this incarnation. We'll see the other appearances he makes in the later movies. He doesn't seem as I don't know how to say it. He seems more like a monster in this one, and less the sophisticated villain that we all know. At least that's the air I got from him. Maybe just because all the fight.
Yeah, and you even see it in the fighting fight. To me, anyone who watches or whoever watched the anime, this guy comes off more as Bison than anything else. Like he seems like he really just wants to get his hands dirty in this one. He doesn't mind, you know, kind of getting on their level. And you even see it kind of some homages to that. I don't know if it was intentional, but that Street Fighter anime from back in the day, where it looks like his thing is he's never been like knocked down. And so you see like a couple times where they almost knock him down, but he won't let himself fall. You know, but yeah, it's definitely a different incarnation. I do kind of like him though. He seems a lot more ominous and just a force to be reckoned with. Like you can see it really did need the entire Justice League to take him on, because I mean he just threw them around like rag dolls, and they were hitting him with everything they got at one point. But I did like that he's very slow. He's just like he doesn't need to rush because he's that powerful. So that was interesting.
Yeah, because his whole thing apparently is that he conquers worlds and he turns the inhabitants into parademons, so thus just kind of increasing his army. I also thought that it was interesting that the Flash and Green Lantern already knew each other in this world, so it's kind of showing that even though we're kind of starting at the beginning, we're not really. So I guess it's just the point where everybody comes together, which is
and I really like their relationship in this one. Was really good, really funny. So and again, love the comedy in this and the kind of buddy cop thing they seem to have.
So I found something random and interesting here. You know, when Batman decides to let the parademon fly him to Apokolips, basically, and he just kind of ties his cape around him and puts on he looks like a thug, basically.
Matches more almost.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. In the comic, that's a really weird part, because he actually removes the bat symbol in the comic, and he does the same thing. Yeah, and that was just one of those little odd things. It's kind of like, was that lost in translation between Jeff Johns and Jim Lee? It's like, no, I need him to.
It's from Superman. He's going to throw it. He's going to wrap up the bad guys later.
No, but he leaves it on Earth. So.
Yeah. Sure there's always a reason. I'm sure it played a part.
Yeah. It was just one of those weird little things that I hadn't thought about until it happened here, and I was like, oh yeah, that was a weird little section of the comic. So at this point, Superman had been captured, and they were trying to turn him into a parademon, into a super parademon, according to Desaad. Right. And then I was surprised, I had forgotten about this, that Superman actually kills Desaad, but I guess he was infected when it happened. So it's not like the whole General Zod thing from Man of Steel. It's like where that was a fully aware Superman versus this one who was more monster-like, which I didn't realize till after he killed Desaad and he was trying to kill Batman.
Right. Which is what I was bringing up. If you notice in this one, okay, so he killed Desaad, so obviously he's not holding back. So if you look at this one, and not to criticize it or anything, but I thought this was really odd. Superman is firing his heat vision like laser blast, not a straight on blast like, let's say, the Superman movie, but this was just like shots, like laser shots. And Batman is out dodging, like he's just moving out of every single one of those, including his punches. And Superman punches like faster than the speed of light. So the fact that he was just dodging those things left and right, and then he got out of the way of the blast, those bolts or whatever, I was just like, okay, they've really powered up Batman in this one. So this is small.
Well, okay, we'll just take the Screen Rant approach. It's like, well, why did he do that? Because then the movie would be over.
There you go. Yeah, I was like, there's no way he would have killed him in the first shot. I was like, no. Yeah, but
Yeah.
whatever. It's Batman.
But basically, at that point, it's just Justice League versus Darkseid. Like you were saying, it takes all of them. I mean, they end up stabbing him in both eyes.
That fight was the best fight ever. Like that was fantastic. I mean,
and they're just literally trying to push him back into the portal. That's all they're working on in that last scene is that he just will not go in.
Yes. Trying to push him into a hole. Yeah.
But of course, they finally do. Wonder Woman lose her sword. I thought it was funny she didn't comment on it, but. Right. But then at the end, as they're being awarded by the president, it's interesting because they're all kind of talking among themselves. It made me think like of a school event. It's like the principal's up there talking and all the students are talking behind him. And they're debating about being a team. Go ahead.
To go back to the fight between Superman and Batman, they actually I don't know if they touched on the comic. I'm sure they did. But in this one, he just comes back and they don't really explain what he did. Did I miss that? Like
you mean how Superman snapped out of it?
Yeah. I don't remember that.
It
shows up.
I don't know.
In the movie, yeah, he's telling him, Clark, the world needs you. They fight, and then at one point, Superman basically crushes him with rocks. And then all of a sudden, they come to the portal last minute, and they beat the hell out of Darkseid.
I think he yells out Martha, and something happens.
I was waiting for him to say that, Clark.
Martha. A wizard did it anyway. But I think I didn't go back and look, but I think this last joke is from the comic too. Although I could have sworn they said Super Friends. I know they said it. I know the president said it, but where he's like, "Call us the Super Seven," or something like that. And then I also forgot there's a post-credit scene where I guess you see Aquaman's brother Orm come out of the ocean, and he's carrying the king, who's apparently been killed, which I assume happened during all the fight, because he swears vengeance on the land dwellers. So there's the setup for Throne of Atlantis.
Which is kind of funny because actually I thought in one of these, isn't it Aquaman that comes out in the books? And that's how I forget. Something, I remember him coming out of the ocean, and we learn who Aquaman is at some point. I thought it was during this one in the books.
Well, that's the thing. I think Aquaman was in the whole fight, because I think I remember him stabbing Darkseid with his trident and all that. So, I mean, it could still happen. I don't remember getting to that point. I think that's when I stopped reading. That's usually my history. As soon as Jim Lee's doing a book and he stops doing it, I usually stop following. So, but rating for this one?
For me, real quick, I thought it was kind of neat, and I think it was in this one. So everyone that is a fan of these movies knows that Andrea Romano did the voice. She was a voice casting director for a lot of these movies. I think she even did like the Justice League stuff back when Bruce Timm was doing them. Those back in the day on Cartoon Network. But it was kind of interesting because in this, I believe she is credited with the voice of the Ring, actually Green Lantern's Ring, which was. Back to that real quick. That whole scene with Batman taking Green Lantern's ring was awesome. Was hilarious. I love it. One of my favorite in the book and in the animated series or show. But yeah, that was really neat. But for this one, I felt the voice casting was really weak. I didn't like a lot of the voices on this one, so I had to knock it for that. Again, the only one I thought was really good. I liked Shazam, great. Like I said, plucky. I don't know the actor's name on that one, but. Good casting on that. Shamar Moore was a plus for me. I want to say this one probably an 8, strong 7, maybe an 8. I did enjoy the fights as you call it. I thought they were great. The action's fantastic. It kept me interested. I was never bored in it. Another negative for me was again Cyborg. His although I like the voice casting, the story him whining the whole time was kind of annoying. And yeah, but other than that, I enjoyed it. So I'll give this one. I'll give it an 8. I'll give it an 8, I guess. 7, 8.
I wanted to settle on that, but then I was trying to remember back because I actually saw this once when it came out, And I remember just thinking it was okay back then, and so
Mhm.
I think it kind of fell under the category of like the Star Wars movies for me. It's like I always seem to enjoy them more the second time.
Right.
So I think I'm going to settle on a 7 out of 10 with this one, just because that's probably how I
Yeah.
felt back then. Yeah, watching it again, I kind of wanted
It's
to give
better.
it an 8, but yeah, there's not as much to it, and especially after Flashpoint, which is such a great story, and it
Yeah.
incorporated so many good ideas
Yeah.
in about the same time allotted too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and plus I don't know what we have coming because, like I said, I missed a lot of the ones that are coming down the pipe for us. So anyway, so this ended up being a long discussion, but I mean it's all right. It's 2 movies, so but anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's a different format, so thanks for your patience with our technology. I think it worked okay. I only saw a couple of times that Roy is looking pixelated there. I was like, oh great, the Matrix has him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You've
But
been fuzzy the whole time, so that should be interesting to see how that
oh,
comes out.
great. Well, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. But we're going to continue this countdown, like I said, all the way until May when the Apokolips War comes out. So, check out all the different streaming services to track down these movies. Check them out for yourself. If you like this video, hit like and check us out on all our social media platforms below. I'm gonna have a link to Roy's toy box. He's been doing a lot of photography since he's been stuck at home. So anyway, we will see you guys next time.
Bye y'all.